If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
My next guest is renowned author and filmmaker Jay Weidner. Now, Jay has been all over the world in a quest to find clues to mankind's spiritual destiny via ancient societies and artifacts. He is considered a modern-day Indiana Jones. Jay was also featured in the History Channel's documentary Nostradamus in 2012. He joins me now via video link from the United States. Jay Weidner, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, Jay, your work is so varied in a sense, and we're going to try to narrow it down in this interview onto the subject of 2012. Just tell us a bit about your research into 2012 and what you perceive that date meaning.
Well, my research into 2012 is a little bit different than most other 2012 researchers in that I began the research into 2012 by looking into an obscure monument that sits in a churchyard in a little church in the town of Hendaye, France, which is on the southwest corner of France, right near the border with Spain. And it's mentioned in a book called Mystery of the Cathedrals by an anonymous, enigmatic alchemist named Fulcanelli. And he says that this cross describes the end of time, or the end of this age. And that was good enough for me. So in 1986, I began investigating the mysterious cross of Hendaye and deciphering it as best as I could. And it took about 13 years, and in '99 published the first book I co-wrote, and then 2004 the follow-up, the second book, Mysteries of the Great Cross of Hendaye, Alchemy at the End of Time.
Okay, so Jay, what did you discover then? What did it tell you?
Basically, the Cross of Hendaye describes a cyclic period in which it is finished, or the ending of the cycle is when gigantic solar flares come out of the sun and hit the earth. And this apparently happens every 12,000 years or so, according to the Cross of Hendaye. And it's a warning. And it's built by a mason, an unknown person, but Fulcanelli assures us that the builder was a master mason with all of his arcane knowledge intact. So that would mean that the Masons, or at least this group of Masons, knows about the cycles of time, knows about what's going to happen at the end of time, or the end of this cycle, and knows a lot more about the universe and the galaxy than we've been led to believe that humans know, far beyond what we know today in science.
Okay, so for the audience then, what is a coronal mass ejection?
A coronal mass ejection is a gigantic solar flare that comes out of the sun. The last one that hit us that was of any consequence was in 1859, which had burned out all of the telegraph wires all over the world. The next one will burn out all electronics that are working at the moment that it hits the Earth. So these happen all the time. There were ones that hit the Earth 12,000 years ago. We know that because there's a 2-foot pile of ash buried down in the strata 12,000 years ago. And we know from the moon rocks that solar flares hit the moon 12,000 years ago. So science knows, NASA knows. And when my book first came out, the second book in 2004, announcing these findings, I was called kind of crazy and kooky. But since then, NASA has got on board, and they're now warning us that this is a very real thing, that we could be thrown back into 6th century BC in 5 minutes by one of these. And it's very important.
What is someone like yourself then doing to prepare for the December the 21st, I believe it is, 2012, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't think 2012 is necessarily going to be a solar flare. It could be. 2013 is when we're hitting maximum solar flare activity time, and the part of the sun that has the biggest flares will be pointed directly at us like the barrel of a shotgun. So there is quite a bit of concern about the time period between now and the end of 2013 as far as solar flares. I can't do anything. There's caves nearby my house, and I hope I have enough time to get there with my meager belongings. But I have an emergency kit. and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, but what choices can we make then? I mean, are you saying this is destiny or?
It is destiny that eventually a solar flare will hit the Earth. Yes, that's for sure. That's just as easy to predict as if the sun's going to rise tomorrow. But what can you do about it? Well, I mean, you can start protecting yourself. You can, there's many things you can do. NASA has a site of things that people can do. It's not a forlorn, lost cause. If the sun hits in the summer, then it'll hit the northern hemisphere. If it happens in the winter, it'll hit the southern hemisphere. So if you're in England and it hits in the southern hemisphere over on the China side, then you're probably going to be all right. They're not going to be in too good a shape. And so we can see that this thing hits different parts of the Earth. It didn't hit Europe.
So it's not
North America.
Okay, so it's not time specific. You're saying this whole, December the 21st, 2012, this is not a date to get addicted to. This could happen at any time, really. This is
December
what you're saying.
21st, 2012 is not necessarily about the sun, although it probably is, but it's also about a transformation of the human race, which is occurring right now and is the most exciting thing that's happened in human history. And that's what that's about. The solar flare is just a part of the awareness.
Okay. So what is the transformation that's taking place as far as you see it?
Well, what's going on is that we have access to information, and then eventually that information, because of the internet, and eventually that information will hopefully turn to knowledge, and then that knowledge will turn to wisdom. But you have to have the information before you can have the knowledge or wisdom. So we're in the first stages of the maturation of the human race, in which we find out what's going on. We find out what the adults are doing. We find out who the crooks are. And we have to then after we find out about all this, then we have to do something about it. And now we're moving into that stage of this long experiment of the final release of all information at the end of the cycle, which happens every time, by the way.
So what do you think some of this release of information is going to be then?
Well, it's already incredible stuff. There's free energy being released, but the secret of alchemy, for instance, how to make the Philosopher's Stone, has been released free on the internet. There's a lot of things going on. It's not just the things that are being released. It's the fact that people are comparing notes. So I can compare notes with people in England or New Guinea or Australia, and we begin reaching some conclusions here about what's going on, and they're pretty damning conclusions.
So where does the Mayans fit into all this? Because the research I've done, or whenever I've looked into 2012, it always seems so very tied to the Mayans, and why is that?
Well, the Mayans were holders of the ancient knowledge, and they embedded that knowledge into their calendars. And so the calendars were built as warnings to the people of this time. They weren't for the people of the time that they were built for us this time, of this time. And the Mayans, with their pyramids and their knowledge of sacred plants and their shamanic attitudes, knew things and were probably carryovers of an ancient civilization that once lived all over the earth. And the Egyptians and the Tibetans and the Mayans and the Cheyenne Indians and many other peoples, the Celts, kept a lot of these myths. The people in the south of France, the Basque, for instance, who built the Cross of Henday, they also had this knowledge intact.
So what do you think this knowledge is trying to tell us then, briefly?
It's telling us first that there's a group of people that know everything that's going on and that they rule the world. That should give one pause, since this is a 400-year-old cross. It also tells us that these people know about history, the real history of the human race, about the long cycles of time, that they appear to know things that seem rather improbable and dubious, but yet they do know it. And so the end, I came to the conclusion that we're dealing with a very, very esoteric secret society that is doling out information to us in a symbolic manner, and it's there for us to get or to reject, and it's our choice.
So why hasn't mainstream science picked up on this 2012 that you have?
Because science is the third in line in the progression of ideas. Ideas first come to mystics. and spiritual people. Then the second group of people that get ideas are artists. The third people that get these ideas are the scientists, and the fourth group are politicians. We're only in the artist phase of this thing right now. Science is beginning to catch up, though, and soon it'll be normal, and everyone will accept all of this esoteric stuff that the mystics and the artists have been espousing since the 60s. And soon science will be in, they already are in a lot of cases, and then the final act of this entire drama will be when the politicians finally realize how much further advanced we are over them. Then there will be a revolution that will the world will never have witnessed before.
So again, Jay, I mean, you wouldn't be too worried if 2012 comes next year and nothing happens.
It's already happening. I mean, if you can't see it, I feel sorry for you, because it's everywhere. And I mean, maybe you have to be 58 years old like me to have enough years behind me to know where we were 20 years ago. Believe me, I know. And we're so much further advanced than we were 20 years ago in our knowledge and what we understand and what the younger people understand. It's incredible. It's the most incredible time to be alive, ever.
And some of the work that you've done as well is on the subject of depopulation, isn't it? Just tell us is that part of the bigger plan then, do you think?
It's part of their plan. Just because it's part of the ruler's plan doesn't mean it's going to work, because you know what? We are already onto their game. That's the problem. Their biggest problem that they face is that we're already onto their game. And it's like we already know what's going on. They're becoming hilarious. Pretty soon we're just going to all break out into laughter when they say anything. It's at that point now, and it's time for us to really decide that there's got to be a better way of doing things. This isn't working, and we're going to end up with a toxified wasteland of a planet if we keep going on the way we are, and we don't have to. Here, you and I are talking across, 8,000 miles apart, and we're talking, almost in perfect live. I mean, this world is changing really fast.
And what would be your sort of hope for 2012? What would be your hope there?
My hope is that people realize that we have to go back into cooperative communities where we grow our own food and we take care of ourselves, and we're connected by the internet. And so the world is interconnected, yet we're living as close to the land as we can. So it's a combination of 20th century high technology with 19th century rural values.
Well, Jay Weidner, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
For more information on Jay, visit my website, themoreshow.co.uk. Don't go anywhere, as I'll see you after the break.
Visit themoreshow.co.uk/shop to purchase products and services from your favourite past guests. If you're new to this site, you can also catch up on the previous television and radio shows through YouTube and the More Show website.